Right guys, it's MK Sportscars time again. First job of the day is load the crates. Yes, it's a Sport 200 going out to Canada. What we're going to do is just going to set the stopwatch and see how long it takes to get to Canada. And if you like the videos, what you see, don't forget, press that like button guys, it really helps us out. Right, back on Exobusa time. We've been modifying, trimming, fitting, making new parts. Josie's been on with this. So before we show you where, one side we've corrected, which is this side, which will show on this gauge, and one side, which is the existing one. So we're talking about bump steer here, which is the wheels doing this as you're driving along with the suspensions going up and down. So on this side now, what we've done, we've made a new rack extension. We've gone with a rose joint, and so that we could shim this. So originally we put some washers in here to find where we needed to be. Now we've made a nice plated spacer. That's the word, spacer. So now we've got to demonstrate here. So Joe's just going to jump up and down the suspension, simulating the wheels going up and down. And we can see we've zeroed this here more or less. We're at ½ mil, and that's moving probably less than £1/4 mil from full up and down on this car now. £1/4 mil. Right, now let's check the other side, which wasn't done. So this side hasn't been modified. You can tell by this steering arm angle in comparison to the other one. The yellow, this is dropping way down. This is much more in line with the wishbones. We do the same up and down movement on this, and we're on 0 at the moment, and this is going. There's the difference. We are going from 4 mil toe out to roughly a mil and a half toe out. So we're travelling 6 mil, whereas opposed to 1/4 mil. So now we're confident that when we set this car, we suspension it up, we'll be able to correct it. And when it's towing, we want to tow this. Probably it's a road car, we'll probably tow it in 1 mil overall, ½ mil, etc. It won't move, because at the moment, that's massive, the movement in it, and now we're down to, pretty much 0 on it now, to be honest with you. So we're happy with that. So yeah, bump steer corrected, ticked. We'll probably end up making some of these. So if you're on Exobusa and you've got bump steer issues, we can make these, drop links up. If you're running the Sierra rack, which these are, that'll fix your bump steer issue. Right, MNR Vortex time, Mazda build. Well, we've been on with this, as you know, but we're trying to go backwards before we go forwards. A couple of decisions have been made, though. We will be removing even this turbo manifold and going for the low mount. I think we said to you that last week, because it will not fit in this engine bay, period. It's too big, too wide, just won't go in. So we'll drop the turbo down. We've already clocked it and measured it up. We'll get the turbo sat down here with a low mount manifold. Second thing is, this came with a Mark 1 5-speed gearbox. Now this particular customer's aiming for north of 300 around horsepower. You're really pushing the max limits of a 5-speed gearbox at that sort of horsepower number, especially on the Mark 1. It's a bit weaker, so we'll be changing it out to a 6-speed, which should be more comfortable, it's more durable, it's sort of good for around 350, 400 plus sort of horsepower. So we'll be swapping that out from this to, it'll be a used component, but a 6-speed, which will be much more durable. So the bodywork and everything else has come off. We've even taken the bulkhead off. We've been in with the pedal box here. The pedal box we wasn't happy with because it didn't have no throttle return spring. So we made a spring for that as well. Pop that in there because it's just not going to be very nice to run and get a nice throttle return on it. We've run the fuel lines in as well, the return lines. The feed line was already in, but we've run the return line in here, and that moves through. We've had to remove this bulkhead. This is all a bit scratched and marked, so we made that look a bit nicer anyway before we put that back on, because it was just really looking second-handish, unfortunately. Handbrake lever, we've got to figure this one out, because I think this vehicle is more been made for a Ford setup than a Mazda setup by the looks of it, because this doesn't work with Mazda handbrake cables, and this bracketry doesn't work with Mazda handbrake cables particularly well, or if it did, it was designed, it's not particularly great. We normally use the Mazda handbrake rather than the aftermarket one, and when you run that through, what we were supplied, actually, we've got some bits in here that were incorrect. We were supplied Ford Sierra handbrake cables with a kit. They won't fit onto the calipers. If you've got a Mazda one, so a Mazda handbrake has what's called like a T on the end here. Elliot can probably zoom in. That fits onto the handbrake. Well, a Sierra one has like what we call an envelope window, which you can probably see through there, has an envelope. Well, that's what's supplied with a kit. They will not work, unfortunately. So I think this has been sort of more set up for a Ford. And the reason I say that is because we put the diff in, which I'll show you in a second. We went to put this in, and this is the prop shaft that's supplied with the kit. That's for a Ford Sierra. So that doesn't meet the end of this disc. It doesn't line up in any way, shape or form. So we're going to have to do a different prop shaft, unfortunately, because that's a Ford one. So a couple of bits that were the wrong supplied in the kit. But when you come to the back here, what we've done now, we've finally got all the old engine mounts out. We've put our setup in that we use the poly bushes because the other ones were, well, just ground off and ruined. Cleaned and painted all the diff up. That's gone in and bolted in for the final time. So that's cool, we're happy with that. Then we thought, right, well, we'll do the fuel system. We've got the fuel lines and returns in ready. We'll put them in. So this is the tank that is supplied, which is fine. It's not a nicely welded tank, nothing wrong with that at all. But there's a couple of issues that we found that was going to cause us problems. Now we can cut and shut it, of course we can, and fabricate, but there's nowhere for a fuel sender on this tank. So if you want to know how much fuel you've got in your tank, depending on what instrumentation you put in there, there's nowhere now. So that have to be welded on. Secondly, we've got a very small swell put on the bottom here with a very small outlet. It looks like an 8mm outlet. Don't think that's quite enough to run the power that he's looking at. This tank, great for a bike engine, and NA would absolutely suit it, no problem at all. But for a turbo setup, we've got 10mm pipe here. We'll look at the pipe there, and that, it doesn't work. So, well, what do you do with that then? Well, the straps that are supplied, I'm not putting them in. I mean, that's what's not going to work, guys. I mean, we do a strap similar to this, but at least it's double the thickness, so it's strong. That's somewhere in the region of 30 kilos of fuel sitting in that's got a held in with, looks like about 1.2mm strap. Don't mean that's going to work. So what we'll do, this is one of our bent tanks. We haven't welded it up yet because we'll make it work, but that goes in, and funny enough, fits in perfectly. So that'll go in. We'll do the Mazda fuel pump setup on the top here, same as what we've got on this car. We'll run the in-tank pump, so it will sit in there in the swirl pot, and the in-tank pump, we can put a 255 litre per hour pump in there, or even bigger if we need to, but a 255 should be plenty for the sort of 300 horsepower. It'll have the fuel sender and everything else in it, the filler neck and the returns. Again, similar size though, it's 33 litres, it's plenty enough. This was somewhere around 30 litres as well, but this setup is going to make way better, especially if you're running that sort of power with turbo. You do not want that car leaning out or having any kind of fuel starvation, because that will just destroy your engine. So yeah, we're on with it, but we're going a little bit backwards and maybe having to make custom parts a little bit to make it work and make it all fit. And then we've trial fitted the interior panels and the bodywork bits, which is why they're all off, and then we set about fettling them before they go on for the final time. So there's progress, but it's gone backwards to go forward. But we've got a good direction on the Vortex now.
He never minded about that, did he?
It wasn't doing it.
It wasn't doing it, Peter.
No.
I warmed it up perfectly fine.
I went to drive off.
Went to drive off, getting it in gear, and then it started playing up. Ever since trying to put it in gear. Is it something to do with gear position? Between like first map and neutral map or something?
Maybe. So working through the problem, obviously, myself, Joseph and Peter here, well, trying to discover what's going on. She's not idling much. She was perfectly fine the other day. So we've come at a couple of things we've done. Starting it up, it seems to fall on its backside when it goes into gear. So we're going to work through the problem. Is it electrical? Could be electrical. Could be fuel pressure related. Has it got enough fuel in it? So we topped it up with some fuel just to make sure. We then went through some of the other processes, which is disconnecting the coolant temp sensor, which it goes into limp mode. She still didn't want to run. We played around in the idle control valve on it as well, on the idle valve. She still didn't want to run. So next job is, well, we're going to go plugs. We spoke to RLM. He recommends plugs. So we're going to get a new set of plugs in this, gap them out, see if we can get her running a lot much healthier. Then we can get the test drive in and find out what's going on. Okay, it's that time of the week again. Yes, it's chassis register time. Well, these are landing, a few bits going in, a few bits going out, some going in crates, some being collected, some being delivered. And if you want to get yourself in that queue, remember, pick up the phone, give us an email, or come and visit us in this very full workshop at the moment, and we can talk you through the process. But the chassis register this week, it's up. Guess what? No, it's that side this week. Well, that's it for a moment. Another busy workshop at MK Sportscars here. It's been crazy. But the good thing is, we're rolling in through February, closing into March, spring times, and we got Yes, we have got April. April 1st is our first official open day. And that isn't a joke. It is April 1st. So that's it for this week, guys. Like, share, subscribe. We shall catch you next week.